They want you quiet. They want you obedient. They want you forgettable. But what happens when you refuse? When you stop crawling for crumbs and start laughing in their faces? You see, the world isn't built for the invisible man. It devours him. But the man they can't ignore, he bends the game itself. He becomes the chaos in their order, the scar in their memory, the storm they whisper about long after he's gone. Tonight I'll show you how to become that man. And once you do, they'll never look at you the same again. Do you know what the saddest part of life is? It's not death. Death is inevitable, predictable, even merciful. The saddest part is that most men die long before their heart stops beating. They live like shadows, obey like pets, fade like smoke, and when their coffin closes, the world shrugs. No echo, no ripple, no memory, just another name lost in the dust. The funeral of the forgettable man is not attended by mourners, it's attended by silence. And silence, my friend, is the loudest insult of all. The world is a cruel stage, but it has one rule: notice me, or I don't exist. That's why the mediocre, the quiet, the invisible, they vanish. Not because they weren't breathing, but because they never mattered. You see, society rewards compliance, but not with love or respect. Oh no, that would be too generous. It rewards compliance with invisibility. It buries you in sameness, pats you on the head, and says, "Good boy, now disappear." Think about it. The average man spends 90,000 hours of his life at work, doing tasks so dull he could be replaced by a spreadsheet. He smiles politely at meetings, nods at jokes that aren't funny, obeys bosses he secretly despises, and when he retires, a cheap gold watch, a forced handshake, and a chair that gets filled the next morning. That's his legacy: replaceable, forgettable, invisible. Now let me twist the knife deeper. Did you know studies show most people can only recall the names of 2 or 3 of their great-grandparents? Just a few generations and poof, gone. Imagine that you lived, you suffered, you worked your bones into dust, and your own bloodline doesn't even remember your name. Legacy isn't guaranteed, it's earned. And the majority, they never earn it, they die anonymous. But here's the joke: people fear being hated more than being ignored. They'll bend, they'll break, they'll wear the mask of nice, just to avoid upsetting anyone. But hatred is at least a memory. Hatred means you burned so bright someone felt the heat. The real nightmare is to vanish so quietly the world doesn't even bother to clap at your exit. Better to be hated, feared, remembered as a villain than buried as a nobody. That's my philosophy. That's the punchline society never admits. Why do men allow themselves to fade? Because comfort is a coffin lined with velvet. They trade ambition for Netflix, courage for convenience, rebellion for routine. And slowly, they sink into mediocrity. But mediocrity is just another word for death in disguise. Every year, millions of men sign their death certificate early by choosing safety over chaos, silence over laughter, and submission over audacity. Their funeral isn't at the end. It's every day they choose to live invisible. Now, let me paint you a picture. Imagine 2 men walk into a room. One blends in like wallpaper. His clothes are muted, his voice is soft, his presence evaporates before you notice it. The other man walks in with a crooked smile, eyes alive with danger, every step daring you to look away. Who will you remember? Which man becomes a story? Which one becomes a ghost? This is the law of power, the first and most merciless one. Command attention at all costs. Because if they don't see you, you don't exist. The statistics back me up. Research on social dominance shows that humans are hardwired to pay attention to signals of confidence, unpredictability, and emotional intensity. Men who interrupt patterns through humor, boldness, or sheer audacity leave deeper psychological imprints. That's why history remembers conquerors, revolutionaries, and lunatics. They broke the pattern. Meanwhile, the quiet clerk who filed papers for 30 years, forgotten before his chair got cold. Let me give you a truth that will taste bitter on your tongue. Your fear of standing out is the very reason you'll be buried in silence. The herd loves conformity because it keeps them safe. But the herd never makes history. The herd never bends the world. The herd dies as the herd. Only the man who dares to draw fire, laughter, judgment, even hatred becomes unforgettable. That's why I laugh. because the joke is on them. They spent their whole lives trying not to be noticed, and they got their wish. The funeral of the forgettable is not marked by flowers or tears. It's marked by emptiness, no legacy, no whispers, no scar on the world's memory, just another name swallowed by time. And the only people who win at that funeral, the worms, because they're the only ones who remember you existed. But here's the secret you won't find in polite little self-help books. To become a man they can't ignore, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to be handsome. You need one thing: the audacity to stand where others bow, to laugh where others shiver, to speak when silence is demanded. Attention is the currency of existence. Spend it recklessly and you'll never be forgotten. Hoard it timidly and you'll die poorer than the beggar on the street. So let me ask you, which funeral do you want? The funeral where no one remembers your name, or the funeral where even your enemies show up just to spit on your grave? Because let me tell you, the spit of an enemy tastes sweeter than the silence of an empty room. At least they remembered you. At least you mattered. And that, my friend, is where we begin. The funeral of the forgettable is not a tragedy. It's a warning. Don't become wallpaper. Don't become dust. Burn so bright they can't close their eyes. Become a scar on their memory. Make sure when your coffin closes, the world either cheers or cries, but never forgets, because the man they can't ignore never really dies. Step onto the stage, my friend. No, not Broadway, not Hollywood, the stage of life. Every street, every office, every room you walk into is a stage. And here's the joke. Most men shuffle in like stagehands, while a rare few storm in like the main act. The difference: presence. That invisible electricity that makes heads turn before you even speak. The world is a theater, and if you don't seize the spotlight, you'll rot in the shadows, mumbling lines no one ever hears. Presence is not about noise. It's about weight. You've seen it before. A man walks into a room, says nothing, and yet everyone feels him. His silence is louder than their chatter. Why? Because presence is not measured in decibels. It's measured in gravity. The way he stands, the way his eyes refuse to blink first, the way he owns the air as if breathing is a privilege only he allows. Most men give their power away by shrinking, but the man with presence, he expands. He fills the void until there's no space left for doubt. Science has been laughing at you this whole time. Did you know that 93% of communication is nonverbal? Your words are a cheap prop. It's your posture, tone, and micro-expressions that betray or bless you. Studies on dominance behavior show that people automatically assign authority to those who take up space. Shoulders back, chin high, gestures wide. The herd bows not because they love you, but because their brainstem whispers, "This one is in charge." Presence is primal. It bypasses logic. It's the oldest language in the world. But here's the trick. They told you presence was a gift. Something you're either born with or doomed without. How? That's the con. Presence is a weapon, and weapons can be forged. How? By learning the art of tension. Most men are terrified of silence, rushing to fill it with chatter. The unforgettable man lets silence hang, lets the room sweat until eyes twitch and hearts race. That's when he speaks. Presence is not about constant motion. It's about controlled pauses. Joker's law: silence isn't absence, it's suspense. Presence is also unpredictability. Ever notice how people remember the unpredictable more than the consistent? The comedian who drops a punchline no one saw coming, the fighter who moves like madness itself, the leader who smiles while delivering bad news. Unpredictability creates tension, and tension creates attention. This is why children scream in class. They've figured it out. They'd rather be punished than ignored. Adults, however, forget this trick. They play safe, blend in, obey the script. But blending in is suicide on the stage of life. The spotlight is earned by disruption. Let's sharpen the blade with data. In leadership studies, those rated as charismatic were not always the smartest or most skilled. They were simply better at amplifying their presence. Strong eye contact, deliberate gestures, a voice that carried. And here's the kicker. People followed them, even against reason, even against evidence, because presence hijacks the human brain. We don't follow truth, we follow energy. Presence is energy, and energy is contagious. The invisible man infects no one. The unforgettable man sets the whole room on fire. Now don't confuse presence with arrogance. Arrogance pushes people away. Presence pulls them in. Arrogance is needy. It screams, "Look at me." Presence whispers, "You can't look away." The difference, control. The man of presence is calm in chaos, centered in storms, deliberate in every move. He doesn't rush. He doesn't beg. He doesn't flinch. His very stillness makes others restless. They want to know what he's hiding. They want to know what gives him the right to act untouchable. That curiosity is power. That curiosity is presence. Think of the great villains and leaders of history. Hitler, Churchill, Mandela, the Joker. Love them or loathe them, they commanded presence. Some through fear, some through hope, all through energy that refused to be ignored. People remembered their pauses as much as their speeches. That's the secret. They turned themselves into theater. Every gesture, every grin, every sigh was deliberate. They weren't men, they were performances. And performances linger longer than people. But here's the joke on you, you've been taught to shrink. Don't be too loud. Don't be too bold. Don't make people uncomfortable. Ha! That's like telling a lion not to roar because it might upset the gazelles. The herd despises presence because it exposes their absence. They'll mock you, resist you, gossip about you. Good, let them. Because every insult is just proof you've made yourself too large to ignore. Presence is not about being liked. It's about being unavoidable. So how do you build it? Start with your body. Straighten your spine, drop your shoulders, breathe from your belly. The body leads, the mind follows. Next, train your voice. Speak slower than you're comfortable with. Let every word weigh something. A rushed voice signals weakness. A measured voice demands patience. Finally, master the eyes. Do not dart. Do not flinch. Hold their gaze until they look away. The human brain is wired to associate steady eyes with dominance. Make them blink first. Presence is as simple as not breaking first. But presence isn't just about dominating others. It's about dominating yourself. The man with presence is not unshaken because he never feels fear. He is unshaken because he feels fear and laughs anyway. He is chaos under control, fire in a glass, lightning in a cage. The room doesn't bow to him because he's perfect. The room bows because he's unafraid to bleed in front of them. Vulnerability wrapped in audacity. That's presence in its purest form. The theater of presence is open every day. The curtain rises every time you step into a room. And whether you play the ghost in the corner or the man they cannot ignore is entirely your choice. But make no mistake, there is no neutral role. Invisible men are not extras in the play. They're erased, forgotten, their lines cut from the script. Only the bold remain in the story. Only the loud silence of presence echoes long after the show ends. So my dear audience, take the stage. Don't shuffle in. Don't beg for applause. Don't ask permission. Walk into every room as if it's already yours. Speak as if every word is fire. Move as if gravity itself bends to you. Because in the theater of life, the choice is simple. Command presence, or attend your own funeral of irrelevance. And trust me, nobody laughs at the ghost. They laugh with the man who steals the stage. Respect. The sweetest poison men crave, sip by sip, until it chains them. You see, most men aren't addicted to power, money, or love. They're addicted to respect. That nod from their peers, that approval from their father, that moment when someone finally says, "You matter." And yet, here's the punchline: the moment you beg for respect, you lose it. The very hunger that drives you is the very leash that keeps you crawling. Respect is not handed down like charity, it's seized like stolen gold. Think of the schoolyard. The boys who commanded respect weren't the tallest, strongest, or smartest. They were the ones who set the terms, the one who took the ball, not asked for it, the one who laughed in the teacher's face and still walked free. Respect was not about fairness, it was about dominance. Fast forward to adulthood and the stage hasn't changed. Men still measure each other in glances, in tone, in how easily one bends while the other refuses. Respect is the invisible currency of power, but most men treat it like a coupon book, hoping someone will stamp their card. Now the science backs up the joke. Studies on human hierarchy reveal that respect is built less on kindness and more on boundaries. Men who set clear lines, "Don't waste my time, don't cross me, don't take me for granted," are seen as more powerful. Meanwhile, the nice guy, eager to please, desperate to serve, is respected by no one, not even himself. The brain is wired to respond to scarcity, not abundance. If you make your time, your energy, your attention scarce, respect flows. If you give it away freely, you're just another servant in the crowd. Here's the twist most men never learn. Respect is not earned through pleasing. Respect is earned through loss. When you're willing to lose people, lose comfort, lose applause, you gain respect. When you stand firm and let others walk away rather than betray yourself, you become unignorable. Respect is magnetized to men who refuse to compromise. The herd admires courage even while it resents it. They may not like you, but they cannot ignore you. And isn't that the goal? But men, they're hooked like addicts. They chase respect in the same way junkies chase a high. They seek it from women, from bosses, from strangers online. They mistake likes for respect, attention for validation, and wonder why it feels empty. Let me make it clear, validation is sugar, respect is steel. Sugar dissolves in water, steel sinks and lasts. Stop chasing applause, it's respect that cements your place in memory. Now let's laugh at the statistics. Workplace surveys show that over 60% of employees report they feel undervalued. Translation: the majority of men are invisible in their own careers. Why? Because they play the game of compliance, waiting for someone to pat them on the head. Respect doesn't trickle down from the top, it rises up from rebellion. The man who dares to say no in a meeting is remembered long after the obedient dozens are forgotten. Respect attaches itself to resistance. Respect is also a paradox. You gain it by risking the loss of it. If you fear losing respect, you've already lost. The man who needs respect becomes a slave to it. He trims his words, bends his spine, softens his edges, hoping to keep it. But the man who laughs at the possibility of losing it, who says, "Respect me or don't, I'll still walk my path," that's the man who owns it. It's not respect he's addicted to, it's freedom. And freedom, ironically, breeds respect. Look at history's titans. Did they beg for respect? Did they poll the masses before they acted? No, they commanded it. Sometimes through brilliance, sometimes through cruelty, always through audacity. They were polarizing. Half the world hated them, half admired them, but none ignored them. Respect is not universal, it's divided. The attempt to be universally respected is the fastest road to mediocrity. Because if everyone likes you, it means you never stood for anything worth remembering. So how do you break the addiction? By turning the craving inward. Stop demanding respect from others. Start demanding it from yourself. Wake up and ask, do I respect the man I see in the mirror? If the answer is no, why should anyone else? Respect begins with discipline, with boundaries, with integrity. Keep your own word before you demand others honor it. Men think they can cheat themselves and still command respect outside. Joke's on them. The world sniffs hypocrisy like blood in water. And here's the final laugh. You don't get respect by asking for it. You get it by embodying it. Speak less, act more. Set standards, not excuses. Walk away from what insults your soul. Respect is not a handshake, not a trophy, not a medal. It's the echo of your spine refusing to bend. So, gentlemen, remember this: the addiction to respect is the chain that keeps you crawling. Break it. Stop begging for the nod, the applause, the validation. Stand in silence, set your boundaries, and let the world adjust. Respect is not a favor, it's a conquest. And the man who learns to seize it, he doesn't just win respect. He becomes the kind of man they can't ignore, even when they want to. Confidence. The world worships it, sells it, fakes it, and fears it. Entire industries, self-help books, motivational seminars, dating coaches, exist to bottle and sell this illusion. But here's the joke: confidence isn't real, not in the way they tell you. It's not some magical essence dripping off the lucky few. Confidence is theater, a costume, a punchline you sell so convincingly that the world forgets it's an act. Think about it. Confidence is the great comedy of humanity. The ones who strut like peacocks are often the most fragile inside. The ones who whisper in the back row sometimes carry nuclear bombs in their minds. The punchline: the world doesn't care what's inside. The world reacts only to what you project. And projection, my friend, is nothing but performance. Neuroscience laughs with me on this one. Studies show that when you act confident, even when you feel terrified, the brain begins to rewire itself. Psychologists call it self-perception theory. In simple words, you fake it, your brain believes it, and eventually it becomes real. So when I tell you confidence is a comedy, I'm not mocking it, I'm celebrating it, because comedy, when performed well, becomes unforgettable. Look at the stage of history. The generals, the kings, the entrepreneurs, they were not fearless gods. They were gamblers bluffing with shaky hands. Napoleon stood on battlefields with a stomach ulcer. Churchill shook behind closed doors. Steve Jobs cried in bathrooms when things fell apart. But in public, they were steel. They were unbreakable. They performed confidence until the world handed it back to them like applause. And here's where the herd misses the point. They wait for confidence to arrive before acting. They pray, once I feel ready, then I'll speak, then I'll lead, then I'll dare. Ha! Confidence doesn't arrive, it's summoned. It's born in the fire of action, not the comfort of waiting. The comedian doesn't wait to feel funny before stepping on stage. He steps on stage, tells a joke, bombs, bleeds, and laughs anyway. That's confidence. That's the comedy. But let's not confuse confidence with delusion. Delusion is denial of reality. Confidence is defiance of it. Delusion says, nothing can go wrong. Confidence says, everything will go wrong and I'll dance anyway. See the difference. One is fragile, the other is immortal. The man who thinks he can't fail crumbles the moment he does. The man who knows he can fail and still struts, that man is unstoppable. Now let's sprinkle in some numbers, shall we? Studies on risk-taking reveal that confident individuals are more likely to attempt opportunities, even when their skill level is equal to the less confident. The result, they succeed more not because they're better, but because they show up. Think about that. The man who dares, even unprepared, often beats the man who hides, perfectly prepared. Confidence is simply the permission to act when others hesitate. So how do you master this comedy? Start with small acts of defiance. Speak louder than you're used to. Hold eye contact 2 seconds longer. Laugh at your mistakes instead of apologizing for them. Each act is a brick in the theater of confidence. Over time, the mask becomes the face. The costume becomes skin. The performance becomes the man. The comedy becomes a legend. And don't forget humor. Confidence without humor is arrogance. Arrogance isolates. Humor disarms. Why do you think the Joker laughs? Because laughter is dominance wrapped in joy. The confident man laughs at himself, laughs at the world, laughs at the chaos. And when others hear it, they believe him invincible. Humor is the highest form of confidence, because it means you fear nothing, not even humiliation. But here's the irony: confidence terrifies the herd. They'll try to cut you down, mock you, label you cocky, arrogant, toxic. Good, let them. Their insults are proof you've stepped out of line, out of the script, out of the cage they rot inside. They want you small because your audacity exposes their cowardice. The comedy of confidence is that the louder they laugh at you, the more they secretly envy you. So, the final lesson is this: confidence is not about being the best. It's about being the boldest. Not about being right. It's about being undeniable. The man who stands on the table and shouts, who risks humiliation, who embraces failure with a grin, is the man they remember. Confidence is chaos dressed in charm, madness wrapped in poise. It is the audacity to say, yes, I might fall, but watch how I fall with style. The comedy of confidence is the ultimate performance. And here's the curtain call: when you stop waiting to feel confident and instead act as if you already are, the world plays along. They believe the joke, they clap for the show, they hand you respect, power, and fear. And the best part, you start believing it too. The clown becomes the king, the act becomes the truth, the comedy becomes history. So laugh, my friend. Laugh at your fear, laugh at your mistakes. Laugh at the world that wants you silent. Confidence is a joke told so well that even the gods believe it. And if you can master that comedy, you'll never be ignored again. Step closer. Look into the mirror. What do you see? Don't answer too quickly, because most men lie here. They see not themselves, but a college pieces of their parents' expectations. Fragments of society's demands, the crooked reflection of teachers, bosses, lovers, enemies. They call it an identity, but it's a mask glued together by other people's fingerprints. And the funniest part, they guard it like treasure when it's nothing but a costume designed by someone else. Identity is a weapon, but most men treat it like a leash. They let the world define them. I'm a banker, I'm a husband, I'm a nice guy, I'm a patriot. Labels, labels, labels. Prison bars made of words. The herd loves labels because they make you predictable, safe, categorized. But the man they can't ignore. He smashes labels, refuses categories, and becomes undefinable. That's why they fear him, because he cannot be controlled through identity. Science proves the joke. Psychologists say your self-concept is formed by feedback loops. People tell you what you are, and you internalize it. Fail enough tests, you call yourself stupid. Get abandoned, you call yourself unlovable. Get praised, you inflate like a balloon. But here's the punchline, it's all secondhand. You're a mirror reflecting back what others have said about you. And if those voices were weak, bitter, or blind, you inherited their blindness. But what happens when you break the mirror? When you stop parroting their words and start creating your own? That's when you become terrifying. Because a man who defines himself is a man no one else can define. The world doesn't know where to place him, and confusion is power. The Joker's creed, they can't shackle what they can't define. Think about the great disruptors. Muhammad Ali didn't just box. He declared, I am the greatest. Nietzsche didn't just write philosophy. He shouted, I am dynamite. They weren't waiting for the world's permission slips. They looked in the mirror and carved new identities out of chaos. And the world, like the obedient herd it is, eventually believed them. Why? Because identity is less about truth and more about conviction. If you hold the mask long enough, the crowd forgets it's a mask. Let's toss some data into the fire. Neuroscientists studying self-schema found that the brain filters reality to match identity. If you believe you're weak, your brain will delete evidence of your strength. If you believe you're strong, your brain will highlight opportunities to prove it. Identity is the operating system of your mind. And most men, they're running software written by their mothers, their managers, or their failures. Outdated code, bug-ridden scripts, no wonder they crash. Here's the cruel joke. The man with no identity is invisible, but the man with a fixed identity is predictable. And predictable men are controllable. The sweet spot, fluid identity. The ability to adapt, reinvent, laugh at labels, and wield masks like weapons. You're the lover one night, the fighter the next, the philosopher at dawn, the fool at midnight. They never pin you down. And because they can't define you, they can't dismiss you. Identity is also about enemies. Do you know why villains are so unforgettable? Because they declare who they are, unapologetically. Heroes bend to fit morality. Villains bend morality to fit themselves. That's why villains outlive heroes in memory. Nobody quotes the forgettable good guy. They quote the monster who laughed at the mirror and said, yes, I am this. If you want to be unforgettable, stop denying your shadow, your flaws, your scars, your madness, embrace them. Let them decorate your mask. But beware, the herd will panic. When you break from their labels, they'll call you crazy, arrogant, lost. They'll say you've changed as if that's a crime. They want you stable, predictable, digestible. Because your rebellion threatens their fragile masks. If you can redefine yourself, it means they could too. And that terrifies them. So they'll resist. They'll mock. They'll punish. And that's how you know you're on the right path. Here's the Joker's trick. Your identity isn't discovered, it's invented. Don't waste decades finding yourself like a lost child in the woods. Create yourself like a mad scientist stitching together a monster, piece by piece, habit by habit, word by word, until the reflection staring back isn't something you found, it's something you built. And once you build it, you can rebuild it as many times as you like. The mirror of identity is your most dangerous tool. Stare too long and you'll drown in reflections that aren't yours. Smash it entirely and you'll wander in chaos. But learn to bend it, twist it, paint it, and the world will never know which version of you they're facing. That's power. That's freedom. That's unforgettable. So ask yourself, not who am I? That's a slave's question. Ask who do I choose to be today? And then laugh, because the joke is this identity isn't real, but its effects are. The mask may be fiction, but the respect, the fear, the power it commands, that's as real as blood. The man who masters the mirror is the man they can't ignore. Because every time they think they've defined him, he slips, he twists, he reinvents. He becomes a myth, a legend, a nightmare they can't erase. And the best part, he gets the last laugh. Ah, love, the sweetest poison. They tell you it's pure, sacred, eternal. But behind the roses and candlelight lies the sharpest dagger ever forged. Love doesn't just lift men. It breaks them, bends them, betrays them. You see, power rarely ruins men. Money doesn't always ruin men. But love has crippled kings, toppled empires, and made lions crawl on their knees. And the funniest part, men beg for it. They kneel at its altar, blind, while the blade hovers above their neck. Love is sold to you as salvation, but it's really control and perfume. The herd calls it romance. I call it obedience. Because love, in its modern mask, isn't about leverage. Who calls? Who waits? Who sacrifices? Who serves? Look around. How many men have abandoned their ambitions, strangled their desires, dulled their fire just to keep someone else happy? And for what? Half-hearted gratitude, temporary comfort, and eventually betrayal. Statistics laugh at us. Surveys show that nearly 50% of marriages end in divorce in most Western nations. Half. Imagine betting half your life savings on a game where the odds were that bad. Would you play? And of the ones who stay married, how many are truly happy? Not many. Silent wars rage behind suburban walls. Betrayals of love aren't always about affairs. They're about the death of respect, the slow erosion of passion, the quiet suffocation of a man's identity, the joker's truth. They'll love you until you stop serving them. That's the betrayal most men don't see coming. As long as you play the provider, the protector, the pleaser, you're rewarded. Stop for even a moment and watch the switch flip. The same lips that whispered devotion now hiss disappointment. Love is conditional, always. And the condition is usually your sacrifice. But here's the deeper joke. Love makes men weak because it gives them something to lose. You can't control a man with nothing to protect. But give him a lover, a wife, a family, and suddenly he bends. He censors himself, he takes orders. He fears risk. Why? Because he's chained not by force, but by attachment. The state loves this. Corporations love this. Society thrives on domesticated men who fear betrayal more than they crave freedom. Don't misunderstand me. Love can be beautiful, but only when it flows from strength, not dependency. The man who needs love becomes its slave. The man who can walk away from love becomes its master. The betrayal of love is not that others fail us. It's that we surrender our spine in pursuit of it. We become so desperate to be loved that we betray ourselves first. And that betrayal is always the deadliest. Think of history's tragic lovers. Samson gave away his power to Delilah. Caesar was stabbed not just by senators, but by Brutus, the man he loved like a son. Powerful men undone not by armies, but by intimacy. Because love, when misplaced, blinds you. You can see the dagger in an enemy's hand, but not in your lover's. Betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from the arms you once trusted. Now let's laugh at the hurt again. They'll tell you love is selfless, that to give endlessly is noble. But endless giving is not noble, it's suicide. Respect in love is built the same way respect is built everywhere, through boundaries, through the willingness to walk away, through the refusal to sacrifice your soul for approval. And yet men fall into the trap again and again, because society scripts them to equate love with sacrifice. The more you give, the more you deserve. Ha! But love doesn't work like a bank account. It doesn't accrue interest. It bleeds you dry and then demands more. So what's the antidote to the betrayal of love? Detachment, not from affection, but from need. When you stop needing love, you can actually enjoy it. When you can look your lover in the eye and say, I don't need you to complete me. I am already complete. Then you hold the power. You can give without losing. You can love without being destroyed. You stop fearing betrayal because betrayal loses its sting. The man they can't ignore isn't the man who worships love. It's the man who stands taller than it, who embraces it without being consumed, who understands that love is a gift, not oxygen, that respect must survive even when passion dies. That betrayal is always possible but never fatal, unless you hand them your spine. So let me ask you, are you chained by love or freed by it? Because if it's the first, you're already betrayed, and the world has no use for a man whose heart can be bought so cheaply. Break the chains, keep your center. Let them love you, let them leave you, let them betray you. Laugh through it all, because the man who can't be broken by love, that man is unstoppable. They say God is love, they say faith moves mountains, but the truth, power moves mountains. Money builds temples and fear fills pews. Love, morality, charity, those are decorations. Power is the altar, and everyone is kneeling even if they pretend not to. Look around. Every institution, from the church to the courtroom, from the boardroom to the bedroom, runs on one holy fuel: power. The priests preach it in whispers. The politicians legislate it in lies. The CEOs hoard it in silence. Power isn't a tool, it's a religion. And like all religions, it requires belief, obedience, and sacrifice. Why do people obey laws? Not because they believe in justice, but because they fear punishment. Why do they follow leaders? Not because they love them, but because they sense strength. Strip away the sermons, the constitutions, the mission statements, and you'll find the same foundation: domination. The world worships power even while pretending to hate it. Let's talk facts. In psychology, humans are wired for hierarchy. Social dominance theory shows that people naturally organize into layers: alphas, betas, followers, rejects. Even chimpanzees follow this structure. Respect, attraction, fear, admiration, they're all responses to perceived power. And yet the herd sneers at it. They'll say, power corrupts, but the truth, power reveals. It unmasks who people always were beneath the politeness. History screams this lesson. Genghis Khan wasn't loved, he was feared. Caesar wasn't adored, he was obeyed. Napoleon didn't beg for loyalty, he commanded it. These men became myths not because they chased approval, but because they seized power with both hands and laughed at morality while doing it. The herd may clutch pearls at their cruelty, but secretly, they admire them, they envy them. Because power is magnetic, intoxicating, divine. Now let's expose the joke. The weak worship love, the knave worship morality, but the strong worship power. The man they can't ignore isn't the kindest or the most moral. He's the man with leverage, the one who can bend the game, the one whose absence leaves a hole, whose presence changes the temperature of a room. That's power. And once you taste it, everything else feels like scraps. But here's the betrayal. You've been trained to kneel. From childhood, you're told to be nice, obedient, humble, to share, to compromise, to turn the other cheek. How? They tell you to give up your claws so they can keep theirs. They raise you to believe morality is sacred, so you never question who benefits from your obedience. The religion of power keeps the masses weak while the elite gorge themselves on dominance. So how do you escape? You don't just reject their lies, you build your own altar. Stop worshiping approval. Start worshiping leverage. Stop praying for acceptance. Start demanding respect. In every arena, your work, your relationships, your ambitions. The question isn't, am I loved? The question is, am I powerful enough to be respected even if I'm hated? Practical. Absolutely. Power comes in forms: knowledge, money, influence, unpredictability. Learn more than they do. Earn more than they can. Build connections they can't touch. Or become so unpredictable they fear your reaction more than they crave your obedience. Power isn't always loud. It can be silent, lurking, waiting. Remember, silence in the right man is not weakness. It's thunder building. And don't confuse power with cruelty. Power isn't about crushing everyone. It's about being uncrushable. It's about making yourself so valuable, so undeniable that they have to orbit you, even if they hate you, especially if they hate you. Because hate is still attention. And in the religion of power, attention is prayer. The herd will sneer, they'll whisper, he's arrogant, he's dangerous, he's selfish. But notice something, they never ignore him, they never dismiss him, because deep down they know power is sacred. They resent it because they lack it, and so they cling to morality, to love, to politeness, like worshippers clutching cheap rosaries while mocking the man who built the cathedral. Here's the final laugh. Power is the only religion where hypocrisy doesn't matter. You can fail, you can sin, you can betray. But if you have power, they'll forgive, follow, and forget. A powerless man can be perfect, moral, selfless, and still die invisible. A powerful man can be flawed, hated, feared, and still carve his name into history. So, my sermon ends like this: stop kneeling. Stop praying at their altars of love and morality. Build your own altar of power. Become the man they can't ignore, not because you begged for it, but because you forced it. And when they call you ruthless, dangerous, heartless, laugh. Because in the religion of power, those are just hymns sung by the jealous. They hand you a menu, a ballot, a catalog, and whisper, "You're free. Pick anything you want." And you smile, proud of your independence, your individuality. But here's the punchline: every choice on that menu was designed by someone else. Every box you tick feeds the same machine. You're not choosing, you're playing dress up in a costume they stitched for you. Choice. The grandest magic trick of all. Politicians love it. Two parties, two puppets, same hands pulling the strings. They bicker on stage, but behind the curtain, the deals are already made. You scream, "I voted!" My voice matters, ha! Your voice is background noise drowned out by the donors and the power brokers. But the illusion of choice keeps you docile, keeps you thinking you're part of the play. Look at markets. You walk into a supermarket and feel overwhelmed. 10 brands of cereal, 20 flavors of soda, 100 shades of toothpaste. But follow the money. Nestle, PepsiCo, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, 4 or 5 corporations own nearly everything on the shelf. Variety is theater. Monopoly wears makeup, and you, the consumer, feel free while being funneled into the same jaws of profit. Social life, same script, swipe left, swipe right, millions of choices. But the app decides what you see, who sees you, and which desires get amplified. Algorithms shape your preferences, train your tastes, and feed you back the illusion that you are in control. Choice. No, you're a lab rat in a digital maze, hitting levers they installed, chasing dopamine pellets. Psychology has a term for this: the paradox of choice. Too many options don't liberate you, they paralyze you. Barry Schwartz showed that when people are flooded with options, they feel less satisfied, less decisive, more anxious. More choices mean more regret, more second guessing. And here's the kicker: when you're paralyzed by endless options, you become easier to steer. They drown you in noise, then quietly guide you toward the option they wanted you to pick all along. History loves this trick. Ancient emperors allowed senates. Dictators hold elections. Corporations create job titles that sound prestigious but mean nothing. It's the same cage, painted with different colors. But the prisoner is proud because he chose the paint. That's the illusion of choice, convincing you that the leash around your neck is a necklace. Now, here's where the comedy gets dark. People defend their illusions. They cling to them because the truth, that they are controlled, manipulated, herded like cattle, terrifies them. They will argue, rage, and even kill to protect the fantasy of freedom. They're like gamblers at a rigged slot machine, swearing the next pull will be theirs, refusing to admit the casino owns them. So what's the lesson? Stop worshiping choice. Stop confusing options with freedom. Stop thinking, I get to pick, therefore I'm in control. That's the trap. Real control doesn't come from choosing within their menu. It comes from flipping the table and cooking your own meal, from refusing to play a game where the dice are loaded. Want power? Don't pick between A and B, create C. Create the option they never offered. The man they can't ignore isn't the one who proudly votes, shops, or swipes within their cages. He's the one who writes his own script, designs his own game, builds his own altar. When they say, "Here are your choices," laugh and invent one they didn't see coming. Here's the beauty: once you see the illusion, you can never unsee it. Every ballot, every commercial, every limited time offer becomes a stage performance. You'll recognize the actors, the lighting, the scripted lines. And instead of being hypnotized, you'll laugh, because freedom was never about picking from their options. Freedom is about becoming untouchable to their tricks. The herd hates this. They need their choices, their menace, their balance. It comforts them. But you're not here for comfort. You're here to win, to rise above the illusion, to become undeniable. And that means seeing through the theater of choices and making them irrelevant. Legacy. The word sounds noble, doesn't it? They sell it to you like perfume, invisible, intoxicating, eternal. What will you leave behind? They whisper, as if the world is some museum waiting to hang your portrait on the wall. But let's peel back the mask. Legacy is just another trick, a costume stitched from ego, fear, and the desperate need to be remembered. Think about it. Cemeteries are full of men who thought their names would echo forever, kings who built palaces, generals who carved empires, entrepreneurs who scribbled their names on skyscrapers. And now, dust, forgotten, their legacy reduced to a plaque no one reads, a footnote in a history book gathering mold. Legacy is not immortality, it's vanity with better marketing. Psychology explains it as terror management theory. Humans fear death so much that they invent stories, religions, legacies, monuments, to convince themselves they still matter after they rot. You think your children, your country, your company will keep your flame alive. Ha! They'll forget you faster than a trending hashtag. The world doesn't care about your legacy. It cares about its own survival. Here's the dark comedy. Most people don't even chase their legacy. They chase the legacy others told them to want. Be a good son, a faithful husband, a respected professional. They follow the script, play their role, and hope applause follows after the curtain drops. But applause fades. Roles get recast. The audience forgets the actor's name. Legacy, just another mask you wear while pretending the play is yours. History proves the hypocrisy. Van Gogh died broke, mocked, unknown. His legacy bloomed long after worms had eaten him. Tesla died penniless. Edison stole the spotlight. Legacy didn't save them. It betrayed them. Because legacy isn't about truth, it's about narrative. Whoever controls the story decides who's remembered as a genius, a villain, a savior. You can bleed your soul into the world, but if the story doesn't serve the powerful, your legacy is erased. And here's the cruelest part. The obsession with legacy makes you weak. It makes you desperate for approval, for monuments, for memory. You sell your present to buy a future you'll never see. You behave, you conform, you obey, because you want your name etched in stone. But stone erodes, names fade. And the man who spent his life chasing legacy dies the same as the beggar, silent, invisible, gone. So what's the alternative? Stop worshiping legacy. Stop caring whether your name outlives you. Because the truth is deliciously liberating. Nothing lasts. Not empires, not families, not even stars. The only thing real is the now, the fire in your chest, the laugh in your throat, the chaos you create today. Legacy is a mask for cowards, but presence is real. Want to become a man they can't ignore. Forget legacy, focus on impact. Legacy begs for memory, impact bends reality. Legacy whispers, please remember me. Impact growls, you'll never forget what I did to you. That's the difference. Legacy is hope, impact is leverage. One dies with you. The other changes everything before you're gone. And when people accuse you of being selfish, reckless, ruthless, smile. Because they're really admitting they feel your weight. You've shaken their script, torn their mask, disrupted their illusions. That's power. That's real immortality, not a name carved on a building, but a wound in the system that refuses to heal. So laugh at legacy, tear off its mask, let the herd chase statues and speeches while you chase presence, chaos, and undeniable force. Because when the curtain falls and the lights dim, no one cares what mask you wore. They only remember if you left them trembling in the dark. Ah, freedom. The word everyone screams about, tattoos on their ribs, writes into constitutions and shouts in revolutions. But the cruelest joke, they're never free. They're either chained to the past by regret or enslaved to the future by fear. Legacy, morality, opinions, illusions. Every mask you've seen so far is just another shackle. The herd is always somewhere else, never here. That's why they live like ghosts trapped in yesterday or begging for tomorrow. Presence, that's liberation. Being fully here, untouchable by regret, unbothered by speculation, immune to judgment. Do you know why the Joker laughs when the world burns? Because he's free. He's not haunted by what was, not paralyzed by what will be. He dances in the fire of what is. That's the final step. The last secret presence is chaos, but chaos is alive. The psychologists whisper about it too. Mindfulness, they call it, flow states, the zone. Neuroscience shows when you are utterly present, the brain stops screaming. No past, no future. Just raw, uncut reality. Dopamine surges, time dissolves, you feel powerful, infinite. Why? Because the shackles of illusion are gone. The mind is no longer split into before and after, it's whole, unified, alive, and yet society hates presence. Why? Because presence makes you uncontrollable. A man who lives in the now cannot be blackmailed with legacy, manipulated with opinions, bribed with illusions. He can't be shamed with morality or seduced by false freedom. He's untouchable. The system needs you distracted, doubting, dreaming of tomorrow. But if you choose presence, you step off their stage, you stop playing their script, you become dangerous. Presence isn't passivity. Don't mistake it for sitting cross-legged and humming in silence. No, presence is fire. It's acting without hesitation. It's laughing in the middle of a storm. It's saying what others choke back, doing what others delay, being what others fear. Presence is chaos because it cuts the strings. And when the puppet cuts its strings, the puppet becomes unpredictable. That's liberation. Look around the men they couldn't ignore. Alexander, Nietzsche, Picasso, Jobs weren't trapped in tomorrow. They lived with manic urgency like their blood was on fire. They weren't thinking, how will history remember me? They were thinking, how can I carve reality right now? And history bent. Legacy followed, not because they chased it, but because presence created shockwaves. The liberation of presence means this: stop waiting, stop asking, stop praying. The herd will spend their lives preparing, hesitating, doubting. They'll never leap, but you leap, you laugh, you burn. That's why they won't ignore you. Not because you followed their rituals, but because you broke them. Presence is disruption incarnate. And here's the final laugh: presence kills fear. Fear only exists in the future, in the what if. But in the raw brutality of now, fear has no teeth. Action devours it. Once you're present, their judgments, their opinions, their illusions collapse, the shackles melt. You're free not because you ran from the system, but because the system's grip slipped through your fingers. So here's your gospel, your punchline, your liberation: forget legacy, forget approval, forget the illusion of choice. Stop wearing masks, stop kneeling at altars, stop begging for applause. Live so vividly, so dangerously, so undeniably present that the world has no choice but to adjust its orbit around you. That is chaos, that is liberation, that is life. Because in the end, the man they can't ignore is not the one who is remembered tomorrow. He's the one they cannot deny today.